सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्याम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So, namaste everyone. Um, Back for another Gita class. Let me share the screen. Welcome back once again, Nikita. One moment. So, just to recap, last time we spoke about several things. We went into detail of what is Karma Yoga, understanding Arpana Buddhi, understanding Prasad Buddhi, understanding what are the Astika darshanas, the Nastika darshanas. So we, the contextual switch between the two, and also how Astika and Nastika don't correspond to theist and atheist respectively. Because again, that's very weak classification, but we have a sort of um, matrix, like a matrix of four, where you have Astika, Saheshwara, Nastika, Saheshwara, Nastika, Nireshwara, and Astika, Nireshwara. So it's a bit more complex and more layered in our presentation as opposed to what you will find in Western theologies. So we looked at that. We looked at how the rishis, how they were mantra drashtas as opposed to mantra kartas. They were not the authors of the Vedas. And now we are here. And I guess the Srikanji is not here, but typically maybe two or three people if you'd like to volunteer to read. Would anyone like to rotate? I know Anand Bhai typically reads, but if we can have like one or two other people. Anyone? Okay, then okay. So Malaji. Okay, so yeah, two of you can rotate back and forth. If one Malaji, if you'd like to begin.
Hari Om. Am I audible?
Mhm.
Yeah. Allowing the means of knowledge to work. If I am the solution, I have no reason either to deny what Vedanta says or to prove that it is correct. Just as in our earlier example, the man had to open his eyes to prove that he could see, so too, the only proof that Vedanta is a means of knowledge is in allowing it to work. I should let the words do their magic on me. Words refers to a certain knowledge born of the words. Words are not just words. They can reveal and thereby remove my ignorance. The words need not always give rise to indirect knowledge. They can also give direct knowledge. When the Veda talks about heaven, the knowledge is indefinitely indirect. In fact, it is a belief. There is a description giving you some indirect knowledge about heaven, if indeed there is one. Every tradition has its own description of heaven, and we understand it from that description. The Veda that then reveals the self by saying that it is beyond words and at the same time uses words to make you see the truth of yourself. Therefore, the self is not beyond words in the usual sense of the term. It is something entirely different, highly technical, as well, we will see, and may take some time to understand. When words are about an object away from myself, the knowledge is indirected, and when they are about an object around myself, the knowledge is direct. Suppose I hold up an orange. You know it is a fruit, but suppose you do not know what kind of fruit it is. Then I tell you it is an orange. You now know that it is an orange. Then you want to know how it tastes, and I tell you how it tastes. That is enough. That is not enough. You have to taste it actually. You also have to taste some other oranges as well. Only then you come to know more or less all about an orange. When you smell an orange, peel it and eat it, not knowing that it is an orange, and I say, this is an orange. The knowledge is direct knowledge, immediate knowledge. Should I continue?
Yes, please.
Now I ask, do you exist or not? I exist. I am. You say. Then I ask, who are you? To this question, there are many answers, all of which reveal I am insecure. However, I say you are secure. This is not just a statement. I have a whole methodology of teaching. I take you through all the steps logically and then I say, therefore, you are secure. Is this knowledge immediate, direct, or mediate, indirect? It is immediate, direct knowledge. Vedanta is therefore a pramana, a means of knowledge, and you have no other way to proceed except to expose yourself to it. Taking it a means of knowledge, you need to understand exactly what Vedanta is saying. And if do not understand, if you have questions, then you should make an effort to understand. If what Vedanta says is untenable, I should see how untenable it is and examine the untenability. Perhaps it is my understanding that is untenable and what is said is tenable. If that is the case, then I correct my understanding and keep on correcting it, thereby seeing what Vedanta has to say.
Okay. So we covered a lot. Give it a few seconds to just sink in and see if you have any questions. If not, I'll share a couple of thoughts before we move on. Any questions on this? Okay. So here's one way to think about it. In our teaching, we have something called paroksha jnana, which is indirect knowledge, and then you have pratiksha, which is direct. Now, there's another word that we have called aparoksha, but I'm not going to get into that because at least at this stage, it may add more confusion than clarity. But paroksha means it is something that you've heard described somewhere. Somebody said something about an object or about an event or about an experience that they've had and you've heard about it. And so there's some indirect knowledge. Suppose somebody describes that, okay, there's this nice waterfall in the US Canada border called Niagara. And it has, it's lovely, and you can take a boat ride over there, and there's this beautiful spray that hits you, and it just feels very fantastic. So you can live sort of vicariously through somebody else's experience, and you can say that, okay, I have some sense of what the Niagara is like, but it's quite different to experience the spray of the Niagara on your face itself. It's a very different experience. That is what you'll say is more direct because your senses are involved with it. But now, when it comes to Swarga, you take Swarga, you take Naraka. Chandanji, Balaji, please webcams on if you can. So when you take these uh, paroksha jnana aspects of the teaching, then you again, as Samji says over here, that it is a belief, not in the sense that, oh, it's a theory. Belief means that you have no choice but to accept it for now because it is something that one takes as part of pramana buddhi, that okay, this is what the shastra says, I accept it. But acceptance of a place called Swarga does not imply that I can somehow see that place or I can know what that place is like. It is still, once you die, maybe you can get to see it, but not right now. But when it comes to the Atma, a lot of people have this misconception. A lot of people. This is one problem in Vedanta teachers and in Vedanta teachings. And that problem is that sometimes people think that, oh, when you hear about the Atma, it is all indirect knowledge. It is all paroksha. And then somehow you have to digest it. You have to do some special sadhana, some special meditation. Swami Vivekananda sort of believes something similar, which doesn't make sense. But this kind of thing that you have to digest it for it to be experienced by you. Now, if you put this argument forward, it sounds very convincing. I mean, it doesn't sound silly. We only say it is silly because it is not following the teachings of uh, the parampara. But if, let's say, if one doesn't have exposure to the parampara at all, and you come across these kind of statements fresh off the board without any background whatsoever, then you'll see that, yeah, that makes sense. Ki, somebody talks about the Atma, but I have to experience it. No, it's kind of like if somebody puts describes sugar to you, then you will have some sense. Okay, they might describe the molecular structure of sugar, that it is C6H12O6 or whatever, like it's glucose basically. That's not enough. But then when you put a cube or a little bit of pinch of sugar on your tongue, then immediately you know what is sweetness. Sweetness is as known to you. It doesn't require any description. And so maybe the Atma is something similar, that people can describe the Atma to you, but until you experience it for yourself, you can't really know it. Now, whatever I said right now is totally incorrect. But the reason I'm saying it is that it's a very convincing argument. And somebody who is naive or not exposed to the tradition can easily fall for this kind of rhetoric. And just as you have to taste the sugar and know its sweetness, you just have to experience the Atma to know what it is. And this is incorrect. It is not. The Atma that I am is not an object of experience. The Atma is the content of every experience, but it cannot be the experience itself, because it is the truth, and it is the truth of the experience, and it is the truth of the experienced object. There is this triputi, pramana, prameya, pramata, and the Atma is that which is the truth of it all. And so if the Atma can be, suppose, okay, let's play devil's advocate. Let's suppose these neo-Hindu gurus were right. Let's say that Atma can be experienced. Now, one fine day, I'm deep in thought, I'm deep in meditation, and I have this beautiful, profound experience. And then I call it the Atma. What I've done is I've localized the Atma, because I've had the experience of the Atma. I've experienced somewhere at some point in time, temporarily, spatially, I've located it somewhere. And I've also given it a certain attribute, which I call an experience. You can't attribute nouns. You can't experience nouns. You can adjectives. That's what it is. When I look at this phone, I'm not experiencing the phone, I'm experiencing the blueness and the rectangularness and the hardness and the thickness and the weightness and the massness, what do you want to call it? I'm experiencing those attributes of the phone. But there's no such substance like the phone that I'm experiencing. If you think about it, you're just experiencing adjectives. So if I say that I'm experiencing the Atma, then I've turned Atma into an adjective, I've turned it into a guna. I've taken away its substantive nature and I've turned it to an object of my experience. I've minimized it. I've made it small. I've confined it to my solitary experience. And if that thing that I'm experiencing is the Atma, then what are you experiencing? What is somebody else experiencing? What is an ant experiencing? It can't work that way, because the Atma is the substantive. Just as the clay is the substantive of the pot is mithya, the clay is satyam. The pot has a dependent reality because the pot does not have any weight. The pot does not have independent of the clay. The clay is what is. The pot is an adjective that's superimposed upon the clay. And so Pujya Samji says that the English language has sort of messed up the way we think, in this regard at least. Because we'll call something a clay pot. It's a pot, it's a clay pot. And what we've done in this, it's a cognitive problem. Because what we've done is we've used the pot as a noun and we've used the clay as an adjective. Where in reality, the potness is imposed upon the clay, which itself is the noun. And there is a pot-like structure that is imposed upon the reality, which is the clay. So instead of, somebody he uses this expression. Sometimes it sounds funny. He's like potty clay. He says instead of saying this is a potty clay, we should say it's a clay pot. Right? Because its truth is the clay, not the pot. So okay, now coming back to the Atma. If I experience it, it's not the Atma. Because what I've experienced is other than what I am. Because I am the content of the experience. As you know, for some of you all who are part of that, the weekly study tracker, what we are after a few weeks or a few months, we'll take up a text called Drik Drishya Viveka. And that goes very deep into this kind of analysis, the seer scene analysis, the Jnata Nyaya analysis. And, we'll go through some misconceptions. Any questions here on this so far? So one more point I'll bring up over here, which is the knowledge of the self that I am does not require a pramana. That I want to be very clear about. This may sound a little contradictory. On the one hand, we say Shastra, Vedas, Upanishads are a pramana to know myself. But does that mean that a person doesn't know that they exist without the Shastra? You ask anybody, you encounter anybody on the road, do you exist? They laugh at you. Of course I exist. Are you stupid? Existence is not something that is revealed through the Shastra. That I exist is known to me, whether I'm a student of Vedanta or whether I'm, you know, your average Joe in the mailroom. Doesn't matter. That I am is known to me. That I exist. That I am conscious is also known to me. I don't need Shastra to tell me that I am conscious. Maybe if I fall asleep doing it, somebody has to ask me that question. But typically, Shastra is not the one that reveals to you that you exist and that you are a conscious being. This is known to me. So then the question is that if I know that I am conscious and I know that I exist, then why do I need the Shastra? The Shastra doesn't tell you that you are. The Shastra tells you what you are. That is a distinction. That I am is a known fact. I don't need to experience myself to know that I am because I have the content of every experience. What I am needs to be known. But then again, there might be a contradiction in what I said, potentially. Because if I'm saying that I don't need the Shastra to know that I am, that I exist, that I am conscious, then why do I need Shastra to tell me what I am when I can at least say that I exist and I am conscious? The problem there is that I limit existence and I turn it to a statement that I exist. I limit consciousness and I turn it into a statement that I'm conscious. The issue here is a subtle one, but it's very key to understanding Vedanta. That I exist and that I am conscious are variable states. Suppose I say I exist, and there can also be a time when I don't exist. Suppose I say I'm conscious, there can be a time when I'm also not conscious. I'm medically unconscious. I'm under, some sort of anesthesia. I've maybe knocked myself on the head and fallen unconscious. Maybe my glucose levels are low and I'm unconscious. There could be a multiple number of reasons why I can say that I'm unconscious. And then once I'm dead, I don't exist. So this is why the word exist and conscious are again things that we've conditioned ourselves to accept as an idea. What Shastra reveals is not that you exist, but your existence. Not that you are conscious, but your consciousness. And this distinction is not a small one. It is everything. This distinction is a difference between life and death, between mortality and immortality. Asatuma sadgama, tamasuma jyotirgama. This is a difference. If this is not understood, finished. The third word that we have, anantam, that we do not know. Shastra tells us this. When you stick anantam upon exist, anantam disappears, and what is left behind is existence. The word exist is transformed into existence with the appreciation of Anantam. The word conscious is transformed into consciousness by the appreciation of Anantam. And what does Anantam mean over here? Anantam is Anandam, and it means fullness, wholeness, without any limitations, no delimiters whatsoever. So it's a very nice name, Anand. It's Ananta, Ananda, fullness. It is a lakshan of the Atma. So this is what Shastra reveals to us. Now you cannot arrive at this understanding independently, because it would be a very foolish stretch to say that I am the root of existence. I am existence alone. I am the root of all that exists. I am that from which all beings come, into which all beings reside, into which all names and forms find their shanti, ultimate shanti. I am that. That part you cannot stumble upon, as we have spoken about before. It has to be revealed as a fact, and then it has to be shown by the guru through a meticulous set of prakriyas and just very detailed understanding of, of the teaching, and to be able to abide in this truth. That is the goal. So this is why we need Shastra, not to tell me what that I am, but to reveal to me what I am. Okay. And we discussed a few important topics here. So, any questions?
Presently, I have a
Yes.
question.
Yeah.
So while I agree that self-knowledge is direct knowledge, it makes sense to me. Like much like the example of the Niagara Falls, you go there and you experience it in person, you have a direct knowledge of it. But what I have a problem with is how is it immediate? Because we have been hearing what Vedanta has to say in different ways for so many years, but it still takes a lot of effort and some kind of self-discipline, sadhana, for us to actually uh, come in terms with that knowledge, right? So I'm not sure how it can be immediate and direct. I would say it's delayed and direct.
It's what?
I would rather call it delayed and direct.
See, because here the word paroksha and aparoksha is more like something like, okay, so for example, Niagara Falls being paroksha, I need to do something to go to Niagara Falls. Swarga being paroksha, I need to do something to go to Swarga. Any description of any place in the world being paroksha, I need to do something to get there. So here there's an element of karma, which is that I have to reposition myself or relocate myself or do something or create something. Some karma is involved, where one can see that that which is paroksha will become aparoksha when I find myself situated there. Whereas when it comes to aparoksha, or let's say this direct over here, I don't need to do anything to know that I am the Atma. I am already the Atma, whether I know it or I don't. That I am a conscious being is definitely, just the fact that I am, that the Atma is, that the Atma is consciousness. But the problem is that consciousness is known, but it is also, there's a mishran, there's a adhyasa that takes place, which is that, see, the rope is known. The rope is known. It is not that the rope is not known. But the rope is not known as a rope, the rope is known as the snake. So, in the same sense, the Atma is known, it is direct only. It is not that it is not known, the Atma is known, but there is also an adhyasa on top of the Atma that yes, I know that I am conscious, but this consciousness is limited. And so, nothing needs to be done for me to know that I am, and therefore it is direct. But what I am, what do you call it? This avidya is removed, the avidya of what I am. See, so anytime I have a vidya of something, it leads to an adhyasa. An adhyasa is a consequence of something called um, mithya pratyaya. So for example, suppose I see that there is a rope, but I don't know that it is a rope, but I see that there is an object. Because I don't know the nature of the rope, the swarupa of the rope as the rope, my mind will project my fears upon it, or it will project my conditioning upon it. is very natural for one, who may have a fearful mind. It's scary, ye to saap hai, it's a snake. I have to run. I have to take care of myself. Let me escape. And it's a more natural thing. It's a fight and flight reaction sort of. But when it comes to the Atma, again, we've been conditioned so much that because of avidya, the conditioning will come to the fore. And the conditioning is that I am a small being, I'm a worthless being, I'm a limited being, I'm so tiny, I'm so useless, there's nothing that I can do. And so the fact that I exist and that I am existence, in fact, that existence is delimited because of this mithya pratyaya that, oh, I only exist, I'm not existence. So right now I came in time, one day I will be gone. Right now I'm conscious, one day I will be gone. That is the problem. And so in order to remove avidya, Atma Vidya has to be removed through Jnanam. Nothing needs to be done. What is required is exposure. Then the question is that does that mean that something has to be uh, done for this knowledge to take place? No. Knowledge will take place when the three things are aligned. But sometimes what happens is that the pramana is not able to connect the prameya and the pramata. Over here, the very unique thing about the Atma is that the pramata and the prameya are one and the same. Whereas in every other thing, the prameya is different from the pramata. I am a knower, I am an experiencer, the world is experienced. But when it comes to experiencer and the truth of the experienced is what has to be brought out. And then that is one, solidly like sort of vision, it's a recognition. It's like this. But what are the pratibandhakas in the way? The pratibandhakas are the malam that is there in the mind, the different vikshepas that reside in the mind, which prevent one from being able to recognize this because they are obstacles that get in the way. And these obstacles are preventing knowledge from taking place because the jnana vritti, how do you say, a vritti, knowledge is present in the form of a vritti. A vritti is a thought. Knowledge only takes place as a thought. The thought has to be of the thing that I'm trying to know or recognize. Suppose there's a pen in front of me, there has to be a corresponding pen thought for me to recognize the pen. Without the pen thought, there is no pen. As far as I'm concerned, there's no pen if there's no pen thought. Everything that we know about the world takes place in the world of thoughts. What we see is not the world that is out there, but the world that is projected inside. That is what we see. When I look at the screen, I'm not seeing you as you are, but what I'm seeing is a facsimile of you that is interpreted through my senses in the form of a thought. I'm not seeing you as reality itself. I can't, because my sense to be that way, and my thoughts reveal what the world is out there. But now, when it comes to the Atma, here the Atma is not a matter for to be grasped by the thought. It's a very deep thing over here because the content of the thought itself is the Atma. The content of the experience also is the Atma. So then how can I have a thought that wraps itself around the object called the Atma the way that thought wraps itself around the object called the pen? Mind-boggling. But it's very subtle. And what happens here is that the truth of the pen is appreciated as the pen. The truth of the Atma is appreciated as the Atma. It is an appreciation, it is an abidance. It is a deep, deep recognition, it's a deep vision. That vision has to be imparted by the Guru, and the vision has to be constantly, for a long period of time, contemplated upon by the Shishya until that contemplation deepens to the point where that becomes a very natural state of affairs for me. That this is the way I see myself because that is what I am and it is the most natural outcome. That somebody wakes one in the middle of the night and if that person is a jnani, they're not going to have a moment's hesitation to know who they are, to know what they are, because it has been so deeply internalized. But here I wanted to emphasize that nothing needs to be done for that knowledge to take place. The knowledge takes place. What needs to be done are the obstacles need to be removed. Knowledge has already taken place, but that jnana nishtha has not taken place. So, the and knowledge takes place when Shravanam happens. Shravanam is Mukhya. Mananam and Nidhyasanam are supporting limbs of Shravanam. Knowledge takes place upon exposure to the teachings, provided that the teachings are understood correctly. So if there is a person who's an Uttam Adhikari means the most qualified Shishya, for whom all of these emotional psychological issues have been so sorted that there are no projections that get in the way of seeing who I am, of recognizing who I am. Those projections are kept at bay. In fact, they are very much within. It's kind of like how you when you have a little bit of pain, but there's always, if you really pay attention to the body, there's always some level of discomfort, little bit. Maybe there's some grumbling in your tummy, or maybe your bones are a little stiff. But most of the time, we don't think about it until it crosses a certain threshold. And once it crosses a certain threshold, then we say that okay, this is actually causing a little bit of a discomfort. But sometimes if you have a toothache, after a few hours, you'll forget about it. You'll get busy with something else. When in a very similar way, when we talk about this, the Atma, the recognition that this is what I am, it is always there in the background. But currently what is there is that, just as for a jnani, the recognition that I am the whole, that I am the Sarvatma, that is always there in the background, and in the foreground everything else is. But it is not something that can be erased or taken away. Whereas for us, the problem is that there's always this sense of smallness and insecurity in the background, and that forms our background. That forms the backdrop to all of our life and experiences. So even when we have a few moments of solitary joy and a few glimpses of peace, it could be a big event in our lives and we feel very happy. That little bit of pain that is always there in the background never really goes away until one has gained a recognition of this of the self. So coming back more directly to this paroksha and aparoksha, the knowledge of the self is aparoksha. Nothing needs to be done, no action needs to be performed for knowledge to take place. Only the pratibandhakas that get in the way need to be removed. That is what it means. Because there's no place that I can go where I am not who I am. The Atma on Mars, I am the Atma on Venus, I am the Atma on Earth, I am the Atma even outside of this universe. Because the Atma, wherever you go, the Atma is, because there is nothing that is not the Atma, because everything is the Atma. It's beautiful. It is very similar to a person waking up, not waking up from a dream, but well, in a sense, yes. It's a very good example. It's there in Dakshinamurti Sutram also. Prabodha samaye swatmanam eva vayam. So when one wakes up in the morning, or one wakes up from a dream, one sees that all that was there in the dream world, the dream experiences, the dreamer, the dream people, the dream conversations, the dream reveries, all of these things, beautiful things in the dream, were nothing but me. They were me alone. And just as a person who wakes up from the dream has firm conviction that all that was seen in the dream was nothing but my own manifestation, that same conviction a jnani has while alive, that all that there is in this world is nothing but me. It is my own manifestation. It is me appearing as myself and the rest of the world. So that nishtha has to take place, and therefore the fact that I am conscious and the fact that I exist, that cannot be veiled by avidya also, but the specificities of those things are veiled by avidya. The samanya jnanam is always there, the vishesha jnanam is not there. One example to drive this point home, which is suppose you go to a Ved Pathshala. In a Ved Pathshala, people are chanting the Vedas. They're doing the mantra ucharan, parayanam, etc. Inside the Ved Pathshala, when you go, let's say your child is part of the group of brahmacharis who are chanting the Vedas. Now, when you listen to the chant, when you listen to these mantra parayana, you can't identify which voice specifically is your child's voice, but you know that there is some recognition that as part of that chorus, I have some hint, some trace of which of it could be my boy's voice, but you can't be specific about it. That is the same case for us with the Atma. I have some sense, I have glimmers and I have flickers of fullness in my life when everything is going my way. When life is perfect, when I've left my troubles behind, when I'm appreciating a sunset, when I'm looking at a sunrise, when I'm splashing about, at the beach somewhere in Bahamas or wherever it may be. some place that brings you an utter sense of joy. It it puts the displeased self at bay. It neutralizes the sense of displeasure for a moment, and the self shines through. That I am full, that I am whole. That appreciation shines through. But what happens to us is we take that to be born of a certain experience. We think that we have created a certain situation, or we have created a certain framework that makes us happy, foolishly not realizing that happiness alone is my swarupa, and that the moments when I'm unhappy are actually unnatural to me. Whereas we take the fact that I am an unhappy, limited being as a swarupa, and I need to do something to be happy. So you see, this is a flip, and that's why, unlike the diagram falls or something else, this is not indirect because it is not unknown to me, but it is not clearly known to me. If that makes sense. So the clarity and the pertaining to who I am is taken away because that I am is known. It is direct. What I am, some confusion. Just 1 second, let's mute my phone. Yeah. Does that help add more clarity? Okay. Very important topic of this. Any other questions on this? Yes, please.
Yes, Prashantji. Actually, we say that by the direct knowledge, we are getting into knowing what is the Atma, or to be aware of the self knowledge. Yes, but is it not that all the all the living beings, each is an Atma? So when we see, even here now, we are few people here, and we are aware that only some people pertain there, that they seek to attain those knowledge. But is it not necessary that the other also, they should be aware of seeking that knowledge? But most of them are not aware of that. Maybe I'm not. I think the question is not relevant to what is the thing.
No,
But
it doesn't have to be relevant. That's
yeah,
fine.
so yeah, many of them have they don't have the awareness of getting the self knowledge. So is it not that each atma has got that what to say? We can say, yeah, the right to know the self knowledge. Is
So
it
so there,
necessary?
so there are quite a few things to address over here.
Hmm.
First thing I would do is a correction. There's no such thing as each atma because the expression implies that we are all individual respective atmas. You are one atma, I am one atma, Rahul Gandhi is one atma for whatever reason he's here. Everybody is one atma. Right? Everybody is here for a purpose. Maybe the purpose is sometimes to build the diksha also. But yes, people are individual atmas is a problem because that is not true. There is only atma. There are not many atmas. There is not even one atma. There is only atma. Suppose I say, let's see the problems with each of these statements. Suppose I say that there are many atmas. I have created a a finite number of atmas, and I have created a separation between each of these atmas. And so each of these atmas limit each other. They are mutually limiting each other. Suppose I say that there are so many marbles in a pot or in a jar. Each marble is limiting the space of the other. They're all making, every time I introduce something other than myself, I'm limiting myself. That is why when we talk about this whole Dvaita, it doesn't sit well. Doesn't sit well because suppose in these Dvaita people think that they are very humble. That array, we are so compassionate. And we are not compassionate, we are such great bhaktas. We are so devoted. We are so humble that it would be very wrong, catch our ears. It would be so wrong of us to say that there is no difference between the Atma and Paramatma. That there or that 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 somehow this Jivatma such a problem it would be. Basic. That how can one person equate themselves with Ishvara? What a foolish thing to do. How can we be so arrogant? These people don't realize in their own foolishness that when I say I am different from Ishvara, I'm also saying Ishvara is different from me. Ishvara is everything by just me. By me being different from Ishvara, I made Ishvara as 1% smaller. By you being different from Ishvara, you made Ishvara 2 people smaller. By the whole world being different from Ishvara, we've made Ishvara a whole world and all of his living beings smaller. And so we've made Ishvara, we've given Ishvara only this much space to live in. And what do we call that space? Goloka or Kailash or wherever. We've given Ishvara a tiny little real estate property. Okay, you can't be anywhere else, you are there, and everything else is different from you because you're so small. That is what the Dvaita ultimately does. They think that they are extolling, that they are glorifying Ishvara by saying, oh, we can't be this, when they've actually made Ishvara very small. So that is the problem with Jivatma, Paramatma, Bhedam. Bhedam, not Aikyam. Then what is the problem with multiple Atmas? Chalo, let's say that, forget Ishvara. Let's remove Ishvara for the time being. Though you can't really ever do that, but this for the argument. Suppose we say that there are multiple Atmas. What have I done here? Now I've said that you are everything minus all the other Atmas. And I am everything minus all of the other Atmas. And minus Ishvara also. So again, I have made myself very small. So how can I say I am Anantam? Then these Dvaitin people will do some more mental gymnastics. And then they'll say, Arey, Anantam is qualitative, not quantitative. Arey, chod na. You come up with all sorts of theories and from its original purport and make it sound different. But it's all. So then, perhaps I can say, to be more accurate, that there is only one Atma. But Pujya Swamiji says that's also a problem. The problem by saying there is only one Atma is that there is only one space. Right? It's true, no? There is only one space. There are not multiple spaces. You have multiple rooms which create divisions, but space is space. But then when you say there is only one space, there is also something other than one space, which is there's one time, and then there is one universe, and then there is one pen, and there's one this and one that. So the moment I use the word one, I've created a countable object. I've turned the Atma into a countable object. And what that seems to imply is that there is one Atma, but there could be other things also which are not like the Atma. The Atma is unique in itself, but there are also other things, a set of things that will form the whole universe of total categories. So here I have created a categorical definition or a categorization of the Atma by saying there is one Atma. Right? So we can't say that there are many Atmas problem. We can't say each Atma therefore. We can't say there is one Atma because that's also a problem. Because one Atma plus something else also. Then what is the only way to say it? The only way to say it is there is only the Atma. There is the Atma and the Atma alone. Ekam Advitiyam Brahma. Ekam Advitiyam Atma. One without a second. Suppose I say one and I leave it at that, there could be a second also. But if I say one without a second, it means that there is no second either of this species or of another species or within this thing itself as a partite entity. Partite means something that has parts. See, this pen is one pen, no? You will agree? It's one entity, no? But now I just made it two and I made it three and I broke it into different things. It's partite. This is what cannot be partite also. So suppose we say one Atma, then maybe it has different components that make it up. Again, a problem. So we are compelled to say that there is only the Atma. There cannot be one, there cannot be two, there cannot be many, there is only the Atma. So this is just one expression related issue. Because and this I learned from Pujya Swamiji, this approach, which is that we like, I try, I don't always succeed, but I try to be very particular and I put a lot of emphasis on the expressions that I use to ensure, and this is why Pujya Swamiji was such a miraculous, brilliant teacher, a wonderful superstar in the world of Vedanta. Because the words are our window into seeing the truth. If I compromise on my words, as almost every other Vedanta teacher typically that is famous at least does, it creates a categorical issue in our mind. We, when the words are not and correct, we start seeing things in the manner that those incorrect words reveal. So that is just an aside. Now coming back to the main point, or the question itself rather, which is, don't every individual have a right, individual have a right to have knowledge of the self? Yes, nobody is stopping us. Everybody has the right. Not everybody has the inclination. That is the problem. Most people you'll meet on the streets, tell no, you people will have, like anybody, like any one of us. Take Anirudh, right? You live at PDP. You go downstairs. You go to Santosh Sagar. You go to Santosh Sagar and you'll order a masala dosa over there. They have nice palak dosas, by the way. I used to like them when I was young, and their masala bread is killer. But anyway, so you go there and you will see these people sitting outside, right? Santosh Sagar, they'll be eating food. You ask them, you have a right to self knowledge. Do you want to come and attend Satsanga with me? What are they going to do? They'll go to say, "यार, तू तो पागल है क्या? तू जा, go back to Kshitij building. Go back. I don't want anything to do with you. You sound mental. We are from Mumbai. We are high class society. We don't want to waste time with all this Vedanta Shvedanta. I don't know which world you came from, but you leave us alone. We are enjoying our dosa." So everybody has a right to knowledge because it's available. No, nobody is putting the barriers to entry over here. Most people in this world are not interested in it. That's the only issue. The day that interest starts increasing, you will start finding that life has a way to create inroads towards self knowledge. It will just create a a committed mindset. It will introduce a guru figure in your life. It will introduce a satsanga in your life. It will introduce, a whole new way of looking at the world in your life. And then you will begin to see that, I don't miss that old life anymore. Like, for me, it has been very much, it's like a second life sort of, right? When you start seeing things from this perspective, and it's very difficult for you to descend back into the pedestrian way of perceiving life and engaging in your, I suppose, habitual activities. It's very hard to do that. So my mother also, like, whenever she like sees me, she is always like, "Oh, Baba, why don't you enjoy your life a little bit? Why don't you have some fun? What is this whole way Vedanta you do whole day? What is this whole thing?" I say that, Mom, our ideas of fun are very different. Your idea of fun is one thing. My idea of fun is another thing. This is fun to me. If it wasn't fun to me, I would find a way to monetize it. Right? I mean, you'd create a job out of it. You'll do something where you can actually, at least, it'll make some money so that I can do something with that money. But when something is so um, rewarding, so rich, that you can speak about the same thing over and over and over again, is beautiful. On a very unrelated note, I was so of course, like, I live in the US, and there are all these churches and other things around here. So obviously, Ambika will see some of these things and she'll ask questions. So then she started asking. She's like, "Who is this plus man? Plus man?" so so I said, "He's some guy, some fellow. He used to be called Jesus, whatever. I don't give any aspect of divinity or anything. I don't attach any of that to it." But she has some questions because some people, her peers, her classmates, they might be going to the church, So she was asking me these things. And then I said Jesus. I'm like, "Yeah, his name is Jesus, whatever." So then she started saying Jesus, Jesus, Jesus like two, three times. After that, she got bored. But then I told Unnati, I said, I just realized something. Even the names of our Bhagwan in Bharat, they are so beautiful and pure that you could spend 4, 5, 6 hours saying Ram, 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 Narayana, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. You can do this incessantly. But Like words like Jesus and all are so grating. They grate you, right? It's not something that you can even hold, even as a form of bhakti. And the this is just a total aside, but I just recognize that everything in our tradition, like you look at a Veda mantra, you look at the Sri Rudram, try listening to a song by them. Take your favorite song in the whole world. I don't care what it is. It could be whatever, from any language. After four, five, six, seven, loops of that song, you'll shut it down. But you can do the same mantra day in and day out, 365 days a year, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years straight. And it will still have that bhava that it can hold you together. See, this is the power of language. And I'm not saying Sanskrit or whatever. What I'm saying is that the names of our devtas, they are so archetypal, they are so embedded into something very deep and profound that you can only grow purer and purer and purer by recitation of these names. Because these names are the names which are revealed to the rishis. They're not authored by the rishis. If there is a name that is authored, you take a name like Jessica, you take a name like anything, I don't know, come up with some name. You repeat it a number of times, after a point, somewhere you'll have a distaste for it. But the more you repeat the name of Ishvara, the more tasteful it becomes. So it's very beautiful. And somewhere along the same lines, the more you repeat in your own mind and your own understanding the teaching of Vedanta, Satyam Jnana Ananta Brahma, you keep repeating the meaning of it and you keep churning on it over and over and over again. It develops a certain sweetness, like a very nice, juicy, succulent fruit. And the more you suckle on it, the greater is its reward. There's more left. There's always some more left. And at some point, that becomes you. It is you. This is the glory. This is the glory of contemplating upon Vedanta. That no matter how much you contemplate upon it, you can't watch a movie 10,000 times. You can't. But you can contemplate upon the teaching for the rest of your life and more. And it will never grow stale. It is always fresh. It is always a wonder. It is always awe-inspiring. The subject never, there's no diminishing value. Right? They say the law of diminishing returns. In Vedanta is the opposite. It's the inverse of the law of diminishing returns. Because the more you soak into it, the greater is its fruit. And it is not like an addiction, because somebody can say that, oh, addictions can also be that way because it pulls you towards it. No, because addiction leaves you ruined. It leaves you helpless. It leaves you physically and psychologically depleted. Whereas this fills you up like a warm, gentle, hot air balloon. And it just fills you with more and more and more until you realize that there is nothing other than myself. I am the whole. That is the vision and the appreciation of Vedanta. So when people, now coming to the question, when people form this appreciation, as we are discussing right now, then that right to the teaching will convert into an inclination for the teaching. But until then, we leave people as they are because you can't compel anybody to study this. We would be very grateful if we could compel ourselves to study it every day as well, which we don't. Think about it. How much time do we waste every day? A lot. I waste a lot of time every day. Every precious minute that could be spent in contemplation, I can see myself wasting so much of it. So it is all in different degrees. I was talking to Nati the other day because sometimes I tend to be a bit judgmental. And I'm definitely working on it because I know that it is an impediment to knowledge. And, sometimes out of the blue, once in a while, you may be like, Array, if only people were more inclined towards these things, what are people doing? They're wasting their life. Then I had, and, we were talking like, what is wrong in our thinking? Because our thinking is incorrect. How can we improve upon this? Because it's a very bad thing to do tika of anything or anybody for that matter. So then the thought that I had in my mind a few years back was it is a good idea to look at everybody as a sadhaka that is work in progress. And everybody is at a different point in their journey. So suppose it were like Swamiji ji or Pujya Swamiji somebody. Suppose they were judgmental towards me, which obviously they weren't by no means. But I'm just saying, suppose they were to be such judgmental people, they would be like, "Arey, what is Prashant doing? Useless fellow. He's here as a grihastha. He's worrying about going to a job and all. When everything is Ishvara's glory. Ishvara takes care of everything. What is the point of any of this? One should just take to sannyas. So that means that no matter who one is, there can be always somebody else who is capable of judging us. Because we are not leading a perfect life ourselves, and we are not optimally utilizing the time that has been given to us for the pursuit too. So, like that's a very good sadhana thought that I had, which to incorporate in my own attitude towards life. Um, any other thoughts or questions? And one more thing also, right? Because I was thinking about this very deeply because we all have our own cognitive biases. My cognitive bias tends to be that the things that I am attracted to in a given span of time or during a certain period or phase that I'm going through, I tend to universalize it to everybody, which is that, oh, I'm like, yeah, everybody should be doing what I'm doing, sort of thing. And that is something that I'm also actively working on. But one thought I had is that, see, if every single person were truly to study Vedanta, if everyone were to single pointedly try to gain self knowledge, it wouldn't be realistic. It wouldn't be realistic because you always need people who interact with the world to keep the world in its place. There's a balance. Because even if you look at Sri Ram Bhagwan, when he went to study with Vashishta Muni, he was taught all of the Adhyatmic subjects, obviously. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Vedanta, Upanishads, all of this he was taught. But he was also taught Archani. He was also taught economics. He was also taught Raj Vidya, how to run a kingdom. This Shastra, that Shastra, Mantra Shastra, Tantra Shastra, Artha Shastra, Astra Shastra, how to fight with weapons, how to, you know, bring your kingdom out of economic disparity, all of these things. So typically, the way one sees this process, unless one is an Uttama Dekari, so this is not meant to discourage somebody from going full time into Vedanta. If one can, then that is again Ishvara Ichha only. But there is also a role that people have to play to sustain society and to hold the world together. So, for example, suppose there were only sannyasis, which obviously is never going to happen because that is how the pravritti and nivritti ratio is. That ratio will be relatively constant over time. That there will be always a few people who are into the nivritti, and there will be a lot of people into pravritti holding things together. But if everybody were a sannyasi, we wouldn't even have drinking water in our taps. There would be no municipal system. There would be no supply chain. There would be no nothing. The world would go into decay if there were only sannyasis. So, as grihasthas, we have to challenge ourselves in some way that how can we be in the world without becoming of the world? That is the challenge that we are faced with. How do I interact with the world without getting wet by the waters of samsara? Because duties have to be done, obligations have to be met, roles have to be played, and everything has to. But how can I do that also without getting too sucked into it? It's kind of like walking 1 inch above the ground. And that's what we have to learn to do. But we have to create that insulation between who we are and the wetness of samsara, the water of samsara, the ocean of samsara. We have to float on top of it without sinking. It's a very delicate thing to do, but that is where success lies. And how can we take care of a family and see everybody as nothing but an expression of Ishvara as the self? Then Vedanta comes into fruition in day-to-day life. Vedanta has to be brought into day-to-day life. It cannot be segmented in 1 session or 2 sessions or 3 sessions. It has to be brought out into every inch and every corner of our lives. Okay. Good to conclude for today, or would anyone like to ask any questions? You can close. All right. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Namaste.